Give me just a few minutes here. I will make it brief. Just as formality of introduction, my name is Mark Sisti. I live in Gilmanton. I have been a criminal defense attorney now for 37 years, primarily in the state of New Hampshire, but I do get the opportunity to travel throughout the country these days and try cases in other jurisdictions as well. I've had the opportunity for the past 37 years to represent individuals charged with crime. And I actually offer myself to you as an interesting resource. I have prepared, participated, and tried over 100 homicide cases in the state of New Hampshire. From 1982 to 1988, all I did was try homicide cases. That's all I did. I was the deputy director of the public defender program at that time, and my other role was to supervise and try homicide cases. In fact, one of the individuals that we heard from today, Steve Bergen, he left us and ran off to Kentucky, but found his way back, worked with me in that time period as well. And Barbara Keshen, who you heard from, prosecuted during that time period and then defended during that time period. You heard from chiefs of police from that time period. Interestingly enough, chiefs of police that testified before you in support of this bill. Very interesting. Chiefs of police, by the way, that were very, very capable individuals and ran wonderful departments. The capital murder penalty in the state of New Hampshire is not needed. And I say that because I have spent 4 decades now trying murder cases in the state of New Hampshire. There is no need to kill people at the behest of the state in order to continue with the process that is going on now. We are an exceptional state. We have a wonderful judiciary. We have a wonderful Attorney General's office. County attorney's offices are competent. The defense bar in this state is outstanding. And we also have an interesting problem. The problem is, and it's like the elephant in the room. The interesting problem now is that we don't use the death penalty. We haven't used the death penalty. We haven't used it until, well, it was before World War II that we used it last. Our society here is going along just fine. We did have an individual convicted of capital murder, and he has been sentenced. And that is the elephant in the room. Let me tell you about a couple other elephants that we may have forgotten about, because I'm now an old guy. We came very, very close in the early 1980s of convicting another individual. His name was Gagny, and it was out of Claremont. And the case was based on, lo and behold, a person that made a deal. A person that made a deal. Thank God, during the course of the process, Mr. Gagny was found not guilty. Not guilty. But the entire state's case before NH Senate was an eyewitness and a confession made by Mr. Gagny. We came close there. The state wanted to kill Mr. Gagny. I had the awesome, terrorizing experience of representing an 18-year-old kid accused of kidnapping and murdering a pregnant woman in the early 1990s. He was charged with capital murder. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the checklist that you've heard from all of these wonderful speakers today. They are. This is a compelling group. The chief investigator for the New Hampshire State Police, their number one guy, was running this investigation. This is a death penalty. We received this confession that our client gave. And we started to pick it apart. And lo and behold, in this extraordinary state, with extraordinary people doing extraordinary jobs, we found out that the chief investigator got our client to confess to driving a car to kidnap this woman on a time and a date, a specific time and date. Well, we found out that he could not have been driving the car. And he could not have been kidnapping the woman on that specific time and date. And this is in extraordinary New Hampshire. How did we find out? We found out that that car that our client confessed to driving and kidnapping the woman was actually impounded in a police lot at that time and on that date. We found out that our client wasn't in Bedford, New Hampshire. In fact, he wasn't in New Hampshire at all. He was cleaning exhaust vents at a Burger King in Massachusetts. And the state wanted to kill our client. The state wanted to kill our client. There have been people locked up that have been innocent for much longer, and you heard from one today with an extraordinary story. My client was locked up for almost 3 years prior to trial for a crime he did not commit, period. But the story is even better, because during the course of trial, I want to tell you, we all rely on our system, and sometimes you do catch a break. It is an extraordinary state. And we were very, very blessed during that particular trial. Very, very blessed that the prosecutors from the Attorney General's office had integrity. Because the same chief investigator, the same guy, during trial, ignored a court order and was held in contempt during that trial for discussing testimony with other witnesses prior to his own testimony. He was literally held in contempt. And the only way we would have known, was because the prosecutors on that case, God love them, came forward because they were officers of the court and felt compelled. Now, this isn't going to happen every time, I guarantee you. Now, this isn't a DNA case. This is a case where they had a confession. This is a case where they had others saying that he was involved. And he walked away. He walked away, thank God. But we've come close again. We've just gone through an era, and I'm not going to ignore the elephant in the room. Because at the same time Addison was being tried, we all know Brooks was being tried too, for capital murder. And what is this? Is this a coin flip that we're involved in? God love Mr. Brooks. He was convicted of capital murder, but the jury said no death penalty. Addison was convicted of capital murder, and he was given the death penalty. I don't think that this committee or this state needs that kind of justice. And when we go through the checklist, there was an interesting number of individuals that were discussing this checklist, and I assert that if police investigators are perfect, maybe you can keep the death penalty. I know they're not. If eyewitnesses are perfect, then you should keep the death penalty. May I add as an aside, in 1981, during an armed robbery case, I was identified as the perpetrator who put a gun in a woman's mouth. Are the methods used by the scientists at the forensic labs perfect? No. They change from year to year. I can tell you that. We have to go and continue our legal educations and stay up with science, because last year's DNA isn't as good as next year's DNA. The methodology changes, and it's only as good as the scientists that are doing the tests. Scientists that are fallible, of course. Some of them may be lazy. Some of them may actually be cheating. Is the prosecutor perfect? Sometimes we're blessed with perfect prosecutors. And sometimes we're not. Are defense attorneys perfect? I assure you they are not. I assure you they are not. Is the judge perfect? If they were perfect, we wouldn't have appeals. Is the jury perfect? The jury's just regular people. Ask yourself if you're perfect. Does everybody tell the truth when they're on the stand? Absolutely not. Can defendants make confessions under pressure that are false? Yes, they can. I guess I would leave it this way. You know, having experienced as much of this as I could possibly, imagine. I mean, it's all I've been doing my entire adult life. The death penalty is a really bad idea. You can't put this one back in the can once you let it out. Killing somebody is different. It's different. And if you discover a mistake afterwards, you cannot correct it. I think it was it Phil McLaughlin, who was a great prosecutor and a great defense attorney, by the way, testified that, there are erasers on certain things. But if you're writing something in indelible ink, you can't erase it. The death penalty, once it's imposed, it's over. You can't correct it. I'm not into killing innocent people. And frankly, I'm not into believing human beings are perfect. And I do agree with those spiritual leaders that came before you today, because I've seen it. Having done this work for as long as I have seen redemption in people. And it's scary to just snuff that out. Snuff that out without a second chance. So with that, I leave it up to you. But I really do encourage you to ask questions. Unfortunately, I may be the history book for homicides in the state.
Well, thank you very much for waiting so patiently, Mr. Sisti. Senator Lasky has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. I have to ask this. We have a bill in front of us.
Right.
That we've had a few conflicting things, and,
Right.
and I don't know if you heard Attorney Chuck Douglas?
I did, of course.
Okay, I wasn't sure how
Yep.
it was with him. But he says, and, that you can't charge someone under a suspended statute. So that this would not yet.
Okay, I understood what his argument was. I think, and maybe he may be right there, and I think maybe the remedy, though, is pretty simple. It's basically that you're suspending the death penalty. I mean, there's nothing to correcting that.
Okay.
What you probably want to do is make a note where you're not suspending the ability to go forward with the prosecution, but you are suspending the ability to carry out the penalty.
Thank you.
And there's also a remedy for that. I mean, it's a pretty simple remedy for that. You can basically go forward and say those convicted under that particular statute would be subject to either life without, would be subject to life without parole.
We've tried that.
Well,
At any rate, the other question, Madam Chair, follow up, is he also said that Mr. Addison would be out of death row in the passage of this bill. And I know that is something that is not palatable to many. So I wondered what your thoughts were on that, and again, with the reading of with the wording of the bill.
you should have asked Steve Merkin, but he will tell you, he would have told you that those of us that have been involved in doing death penalty work can almost assure you that if Addison does get the death penalty, if he gets the death penalty, it's going to be years and years and years from now. And the odds of it making that run are very, very low. Very low. Very low. I don't know what the fate of Michael Addison is. For all I know, in 3 months, federal district court is going to reverse it. I have no idea. It may never come down to that. I would urge you not to be so concerned about the elephant in the room. Why don't you just do the right thing? I mean, you've heard a number of people come in here imploring you to do the right thing. This should not be the Addison bill. The Addison bill, is in the courts right now. Right? This should be the citizens of New Hampshire bill, the people that are now existing going forward. And you should take care of that. Let Addison's lawyers, and I tell you, Addison's lawyers will deal with Michael Addison. Right? You shouldn't have to worry about Michael Addison, whether it's prospective or retroactive. That's for the courts. That's for Addison's lawyers in the courts. For the Attorney General's office, for all the litigation for the next decade and a half that's going to take place. Yet another reason to suspend this dumping business. But I assure you that his attorneys will address that. Not Chuck Douglas, not me, not a retired Supreme Court judge. What you should be doing, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is addressing what we're dealing with today and going forward. What happens with Mr. Addison. And I think that penalty should be repealed. I mean, I'm sure we understood that from the beginning, but I don't think Addison should get the death penalty. All right, because I thought it was randomly applied. But on the side, he's not my client. Right? And I don't think anybody in here is qualified to give you an answer on that. It will be years of litigation. Years of litigation. I think we stop the bleeding now, is what my opinion would be. Don't let a mistake happen while we're waiting around for Michael Addison's fate to be determined.